Thanks for joining us. I'm Bob Massi. In 1954, Walt Disney began construction on what he envisioned to be a magical place for families on the site of a former orange grove in California.
Walt Disney is a man who had a dream to take raw land and with courage and conviction build a magic kingdom called Disneyland.
Disneyland was a huge success, but Walt Disney knew that hardly anyone crossed the Mississippi to travel to Disneyland. So he needed a place on the East Coast.
The requirements were good weather and also a populous destination.
Walt Disney saw the unlimited potential of Central Florida.
The area around Orlando was mostly orange groves, swamps, and farmland.
There were only 7,500 total residents in Osceola County back in the early 60s.
There weren't for miles any utilities that people could have even connected to.
Nothing but cows and oranges.
With the Florida Turnpike and Interstate 4 under construction, well, Disney made his decision, but he kept it very quiet.
Well, they had to buy up the land very secretly because as soon as you said Disney was coming to Central Florida, the land values would have gone through the roof.
We actually formed several fictitious companies.
About 36 different real estate companies, none of which knew what the others were doing.
In 1964, he began quietly buying up millions of dollars worth of land, a few thousand acres at a time.
Without anybody really being aware of what was going on.
In the beginning, there was a couple names that the project went by: Project X, Project Future, and Project East.
These companies started purchasing 47 square miles, 30,000 acres.
Twice the size of Manhattan Island, larger than the city of San Francisco.
And it was quite an epic vision that he had for what everybody else looked at to be undevelopable swampland.
Eventually, word got out.
Walt Disney, who will bring a new world of entertainment, pleasure, and economic development to the state of Florida.
Unfortunately, in 1966, Walt Disney died, but his brother Roy Disney took over to make sure that his vision was going to come to life.
Disney convinced the state to actually turn the area into its special government district called the Reedy Creek Improvement District.
The Reedy Creek Improvement District was a novel form of regulatory government. It was passed by the Florida legislature.
This gave Disney basically the powers of an incorporated city, which is very strong.
It could acquire land, levy taxes. It had control over pest control, water and flood control, and fire services.
Disney is its own local government, and I don't think that would ever happen again in Florida or probably anywhere else.
The 2-year, $400 million construction project employed more than 9,000 people.
Lots of different construction companies that had experience with very large projects were brought into Florida.
Finally, in October of 1971, the doors to the Magic Kingdom were open. Over the next 2 years, more than 20 million people visited, and 13,000 found work there.
In 1971, we had one theme park, the Magic Kingdom, 2 hotels. That was all that there was. It's evolved to now almost 65,000 people employed.
It's 4 theme parks, 2 water parks, golf courses, resort hotels, not to mention retail.
It's thought to have a direct $50 billion economic impact for the state. It helps to bring in over 60 million visitors year after year.
Suddenly, Orlando was Florida's fastest growing city. And other brands, guess what? They took notice.
Not long after the Magic Kingdom opened, SeaWorld opens.
And Disney kept expanding. Epcot was built in 1982. Then came Universal Studios in 1990, which added City Walk in 1999 and Islands of Adventures after that.
In order to visit all the attractions here in Central Florida, we need 67 days.
What does this all mean for the area? Billions in tourism dollars, hundreds of thousands of jobs, and all kinds of indirect impact.
It has been obviously transformational.
All of a sudden we had to take care of all these guests that are coming. We have to have the infrastructure.
Businesses, financial services, hotels, restaurants.
Like everywhere else, the economy crash of 2008, well, they hit the Orlando area pretty good. But as people started returning to the theme parks, the effect on the area and the housing market was very noticeable. As
our parks started to regain visitors, more people were going to work, more people needing housing. The apartments, foreclosures, dropped.
Lumos Maxima! After Universal's Harry Potter theme park opened in 2010 and Legoland in 2011, Both visitors and people looking to relocate, they flooded the area. More than 80,000 new residents arrived in 2010 alone. Employment at Universal Orlando jumped from 13,000 to 20,000. Disney is the region's biggest jobs factory with 74,000 employees, and they are still expanding.
It's not just the people working at the parks, but all the multiplier effect. You've got to have the doctors and the dentists and the lawyers, all those kinds of things that support that.
And obviously with that comes the need for more ability to have residences close by.
Formerly foreclosed houses end up getting snatched up by the theme park workers hired to keep up with the swelling crowds and expanded parks.
We were able to recover faster than a lot of communities.
For every 80 guests that come as tourists to the state, one job is created. So with over 60 million tourists, it's integral to us sustaining a thriving workforce as well.
By the beginning of 2015, once foreclosed homes made up about 30% of all the home sales in the region. Not many people would have predicted this back when Walt Disney flew over Central Florida in the 1960s and decided to quietly start buying up land.